So, I've been meaning to tell you this story for a while now. You know how I've been redecorating the apartment, right? Well, grab your tea, because this gets interesting. It was last Thursday, one of those dreary April mornings where the sky can't decide if it wants to rain or not. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the one with that wobbly leg I fixed with those little paper coasters from that cafe down the street. The same table where we're sitting right now, actually. I was scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly checking emails, when a notification popped up. It was from Mark, my ex-husband Mark, the man who, for 7 years, shared my bed, my Netflix account, and apparently his affections with someone else. The message was short. "Heard you sold our couch." That was ours. Why didn't you ask me first? I nearly spat out my coffee. I hadn't heard from him in, 4 months? And this is what breaks his silence? A beige sectional from Crate and Barrel that had seen better days? I set my phone down next to my mug, the blue ceramic one with the chip on the rim, and stared out the window at Mrs. Patterson's cat sunning itself on the fire escape. The nerve of that man. The absolute nerve. Let me back up a bit. When Mark moved out last fall, he took exactly what he wanted. His records, his books, his fancy coffee machine that made too much noise anyway. He took the good towels, which still irritates me, but he left the couch, said he had no room for it in his new place, which I later found out was the apartment of his colleague Jennifer. Jennifer from accounting, with the blonde highlights and the laugh that always sounded like she was auditioning for something. For months, I slept on that couch instead of our bed. I don't know why. Some weird form of self-punishment, I guess. I'd curl up with a throw blanket my mom gave us for Christmas 3 years ago. The one with the frayed edge because Mark's cat kept needing it. The cat he also left behind, by the way. Stanley snuggled with me on that couch through the worst days, his warm little body pressed against my back as I cried myself to sleep binge-watching cooking shows I didn't care about. Every morning, I'd wake up with the imprint of those stiff cushion seams on my cheek and an ache in my lower back that no amount of stretching could fix. But somehow, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in our bed. Our bed felt too big, too empty, too much like a monument to what we'd lost. The couch, at least, had always been a shared space, a neutral zone. The apartment felt so hollow after he left. You've been here before, but you know how small it is. Just the one bedroom, the kitchen with barely enough counter space to chop an onion, and the living room that gets that perfect slant of afternoon sun from the west-facing windows. But after he moved out, it felt cavernous. My footsteps echoed more. Every small noise I made seemed amplified by the absence of another person's sounds. I kept finding his things for weeks. A lone sock under the radiator, a half-used tube of his shaving cream in the bathroom cabinet, his favorite coffee mug pushed to the back of the cupboard, the green one with that stupid Metallica logo that I always thought was so juvenile. Each little discovery was like a tiny aftershock following the earthquake of our separation. But that couch, that damned couch, it sat there like I don't know, like a tumor in the middle of my healing space. It was comfortable enough, I suppose. We'd picked it out together about 3 years into our marriage, on one of those sunny Saturday afternoons when we still did things like shop for furniture together. I remember Mark bouncing on it in the store, making me laugh as the salesperson looked on with that expression that said, "Are you going to control your husband? Or should I?" We'd had good times on that couch, movie nights with big bowls of popcorn balanced precariously between us, Sunday mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, friends crammed onto it during parties, wine glasses in hand, shoes kicked off on the rug below. But it was also the couch where everything fell apart. See, Mark had this habit, I guess I should say. When he couldn't sleep, which was often, he'd get up and go sit on the couch with his phone or his laptop. Said he didn't want to disturb me with the screen light. Considerate, right? That's what I thought too. Until that night in September, when I got up to get a glass of water around 3 a.m. and found him asleep on the couch, his phone still lit up on his chest. I wasn't snooping, I swear. But the notification banner was right there, impossible to miss, as I reached over to move his phone to the coffee table so it wouldn't fall. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Miss your hands on me. J. Double quote. The message glowed in the darkness of our living room like a radioactive thing. I remember standing there, the glass of water cold in my hand, while something hot and terrible spread through my chest. The streetlight outside our window cast this sickly yellow glow across the room, and I could see his face in that light. Peaceful, relaxed in sleep, unaware that everything had just shattered. I didn't wake him up. I didn't throw the water in his face, or scream, or do any of the things people do in movies. I just went back to bed and stared at the ceiling until morning, listening to the occasional car passing on the street below, the distant siren somewhere in the city, the sound of my marriage dissolving with each tick of the bedside clock. When I confronted him the next day, he denied it at first, then minimized it, then finally admitted it had been going on for months. Jennifer was just a friend until suddenly she wasn't. They'd been meeting for lunch, then drinks after work, and then, well, you know how these stories go. And where did he draft all those messages to her? Where did he sit, night after night, cultivating this other relationship while I slept obliviously in the next room? That beige sectional with the slight coffee stain on the left cushion from when Stanley knocked over my mug chasing a moth. After Mark moved out, that stain seemed to grow in my mind. I'd find myself staring at it while watching TV, this small brown blemish becoming larger and more significant with each passing day. It wasn't just coffee anymore. It was a mark of betrayal, of disrespect, of the way he'd sullied everything we'd built together. For months, I lived with that couch. I ate on it, slept on it, cried on it, healed on it. And slowly, very slowly, I started to reclaim my space. I bought new throw pillows, those emerald green velvet ones you like so much. I rearranged the bookshelves, putting my favorite novels at eye level, instead of accommodating Mark's preference for displaying his pretentious philosophy books that he never actually read. I painted the bedroom that deep blue color I'd always wanted, but Mark had vetoed because it was too dark. And 2 weeks ago, I finally decided it was time for the couch to go. Not because I was still angry, though, let's be honest, part of me will always be a little angry, but because I was ready for something that was just mine. Something that didn't have the ghost of my failed marriage embedded in its cushions. So I listed it online, priced it fair but not cheap. It was still in good condition despite everything, and those crate and barrel pieces hold their value surprisingly well. Within a day, I had 3 offers. I accepted the highest one, from a young couple just moving in together. They came to pick it up last Saturday, full of that excited energy new couples have, already discussing where they'd place it in their new apartment. The guy reminded me a bit of Mark when we first met. Earnest, helpful, carrying a love seat down 3 flights of stairs with a determination that said he was trying to impress his girlfriend. I helped them maneuver it out the door, and as they drove away with my old couch strapped to the roof of their Honda Civic, I felt lighter than I had in months. That evening, I sat on the floor of my half-empty living room, eating takeout straight from the container, Stanley purring beside me, and for the first time since Mark left, the space felt like it could be mine again. I ordered a new couch the next day. It arrives tomorrow, actually. It's nothing like the old one. It's a rich cognac leather, a bit smaller, more my style than ours. The kind of couch a single woman in her 30s who's getting her shit back together would own. So when I got Mark's text yesterday, I had to laugh. Really laugh, not that bitter chuckle I've been doing for months that you always call me out on. A genuine laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside that's finally healing. I waited a few hours before responding. Not to be petty, though maybe a little bit to be petty. I was at the farmer's market when his message came through, picking out heirloom tomatoes and listening to that guitarist who always plays near the cheese stall. The one with the gray beard and the repertoire of Beatles songs. The smell of fresh bread and flowers was in the air, and children were running around with free samples of apple cider, and I realized I didn't owe Mark an immediate response. Or any response, really. But eventually, I did reply. As I was slicing those tomatoes for a salad, Standing in my kitchen with the afternoon sun streaming through the window, the radio playing that Fleetwood Mac song we used to dance to, I picked up my phone and wrote, "You mean the couch where you used to sit at 2 a.m. texting Jennifer? That memory?" He didn't respond for a long time. Long enough that I finished my salad, washed the dishes, and was halfway through an episode of that baking show we've been watching when my phone finally buzzed again. That's not fair. We had good memories on that couch, too. I stared at those words for a while, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, not even sadness, really. Just a calm certainty. "We did," I wrote back. "But you're the one who turned it into something else. I'm not keeping furniture that reminds me of betrayal. I'm making new memories now, with better furniture." Then I added, "And Stanley says hi. He likes the new couch I ordered. Leather. No fabric to catch his claws." That was a small dig. Mark always complained about Stanley's claws on the furniture. He hasn't responded since. Maybe he won't. And for the first time, I realize I don't really care if he does or doesn't. The thing is, I didn't sell that couch to hurt Mark or to erase our past. I sold it because I finally understood that memories don't live in objects. They live in us, and we get to choose which ones we carry forward and which ones we leave behind with the furniture we no longer need. You know what's funny? After all that drama, after all those months of sleeping on it instead of my bed, after finally selling it and feeling so liberated, I can barely remember what that couch looked like anymore. Was the arm on the left or the right? Were there 3 cushions or 4? It's fading already, like an old photograph left in the sun. But I remember exactly how it felt to stand in my half-empty living room afterward. The faint rectangular clean spot on the hardwood where it had sat for years, protecting that section of floor from dust and sunlight. I remember how I opened all the windows, letting the spring air rush in, and how I swept and mopped that exposed patch of floor until it matched the rest of the room. I remember thinking, this space is mine now, all mine. And it is. The whole apartment feels different now, lighter somehow, even with all the same stuff in it, minus 1 beige sectional and 1 unfaithful husband. The air moves differently through the rooms. The light falls in new patterns. Even the creaks in the floorboards sound friendlier. This morning, I woke up in my bed. Yes, I'm sleeping there again finally, with Stanley curled against my back, his soft snores like tiny motors in the quiet room. The sheets were cool and smelled like that lavender detergent I splurged on last week. Through the half-open blinds, I could see the sky turning pink with sunrise, and I just lay there for a while, feeling content in a way I haven't in so long. When I eventually got up and padded into the living room, the empty space where the couch used to be seemed full of possibility rather than loss. And I thought about Mark's text, about his indignation over a piece of furniture he left behind without a second thought when he walked out on our marriage. That's when it really hit me. It was never about the couch for him. It was about control, about maintaining some kind of claim on my space, on my life, even as he built a new one with someone else. He wanted to keep 1 foot in the door just in case. Or maybe he just couldn't stand the thought of me moving on, reshaping my life without his input or permission. Either way, I'm glad I sold it. I'm glad I told him why. And I'm really glad you're here today, sitting across from me at this wobbly table, drinking tea and listening to my rambling story about a couch that was never just a couch. The delivery window for the new one is between 2 and 5 p.m. Want to stick around and help me break it in with a movie marathon? I've got popcorn, wine, and exactly 0 regrets about leaving that beige monstrosity, and all the memories it held, firmly in the past where they belong. Because here's what I finally realized. Some memories aren't worth keeping. Some are just lessons. And sometimes, the most satisfying thing isn't holding on to the past. It's recognizing when you're ready to sell it for a fair price and use the money to buy something better. So that's my confession. I sold our couch without asking, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. After all, it was just a couch. It was never the home. I am. And I'm finally comfortable with that.